In this last set of views, we're going to be working with section planes. So we already made a roof plan, but if we want to see a floor plan, one way to do it is to generate a section plane. So I'm going to go to an isometric view. Okay, and maybe I will change the visual style to looking for one that's maybe the default just while we're doing this, and then I'll change it back. Okay, so when we make section planes, one thing about a floor plan is that we want to be able to see anything that is within a horizontal cut line. When you do a roof plan, you're like above the subject looking down on it, so I can't see underneath the roof. So to create a floor plan, one way to do it is to go to the Tools menu and select Section Plane. And we need to orient it to something in the view. So I'm going to just place it here temporarily and say OK. All right, now it basically placed this section plane directly on the ground. And that isn't very helpful because I can't see anything like walls and anything else that happens to be in the view. Typically, a floor plan has a section plane that is about 4 feet above the ground surface or the floor surface. And at that height, you can see things like windows. Windows are normally placed, maybe 3 feet above the floor. Of course, there are all kinds of windows. Some go all the way to the ground, etc. But generally speaking, a 4-foot section plane is where they are typically. So right now we can't see it. I'm going to go to the front view. And when I do that, now there appears this section plane. And as you can see, it's sitting directly on top of the base. So what I want to do is pan over here so I can see the section, click on it, and move it up 4 feet. Right, so now you can see that it's cutting through the walls and of course some of the other things, but that's not important right now. What we're going to do now is go to the top view, and now you can see that the walls are appearing as well as some of the other objects in the view. Right, so this is generating a floor plan. We don't see the roof. Typically, when you have a roof, you're going to see that as a dashed line, but we're going to leave it off for the sake of this particular drawing. Right, so I'm going to use the pan tool, kind of center my view. I'm going to now go back, and because I'm working towards this final layout, I'm going to go and I'm going to choose the visual style that I've been working with. Now we see these walls as blue, and those are indicating what is being cut in section. When you generate the 2D view from this view, those blue lines will not appear. So you can go ahead and do that. Now would be a good time also to create a new scene. I'm going to call this scene floor plan. So I can go back to it if I need to. But from here, I can also generate my 2D graphic. Now, the second drawing that we'll generate using the section plane tool is a section. So I'm going to go back to my ISO view. All right, now you can see that it's still registering the horizontal section. And I can click on it and remove the active cut. Okay, so now I have the view without that section there, but the section plane still exists. All right, the next view that I'm going to make, and I'm going to go again back to the style options here. just to make this a little bit easier to see. And I'll go to the default view. I'm going to create another section plane. So I'll go to Tools, Section Plane. And this time I want to orient it. You need to think about where you want to cut your section. Actually, before I proceed with the steps here, I'm going to go back to the top view. So I'll hide that roof plane. First, unlock it and hide it, just to illustrate something. Where you choose to cut your section is up to you, but generally speaking, you want to show it where there's a lot of action happening, a lot of things to show in terms of relationships of spaces. So this is a single story pavilion, so it's not like there are atriums and multi-height spaces and stuff like that. I do have these two parts that have vertical circulation, and that might be interesting to see from a sectional standpoint. So I'm going to cut my section right through this part right here. This is my ramp, and so it will show that. So I'm going to bring my roof back there, and I'm going to go back to the isometric view. And from here, I will go to Tools, Section Plane, and I want it to be oriented in the same direction as my section cut. So I'm going to temporarily place it right there, right? And it's created a new section plane. Okay, and you can see that it's extending that section, it's cutting through this part of the drawing. So, as I mentioned, I want to cut it through the ramp right here. So what I'm going to do is go to Camera, Standard Views, Front. There's my second section plane. And, when you make these, you may have different numbers here. I was experimenting with some sections, and so that's why it's starting with 3 and 4 for me. I'm going to click on this section, and I'm going to move it from its current location so that it's cutting through my ramp. Okay, now I'm going to look at my view here from the right side. Right, so what we see here is that it's cutting through the ramp and it's going up to the base. It's also cutting through some walls and the little bench that I drew. Okay, so that is what's involved with the section. So from this point, I'm going to kind of make it as big as I can in my view here. And I'm going to generate a scene. This scene. Okay, let's hold a second here. Let's go to a new scene. Save as a new style. So I want to reset it to the style that I'd been using elsewhere, sorted styles. It was this one. Now let's see here. Okay, scene 14. And I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to rename that scene. I lost my details here. Hide details, show details. Let me figure out how to bring those back. Okay, they're there. They just got moved down towards the bottom here. So again, that was scene. What's the scene number that I just created? 14. And I'm going to rename that one section. Okay, now this one can be turned into a 2D graphic view. All right, the last view type that I'm going to make, and again, this is another one that's using the section plane. I'm going to go back to the ISO view, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to select that section plane, right click, and I'm going to deactivate it. The next one I'm going to create is going to cut through my stair. So I'll go ahead and do the tools, section plane, and, of course, which one you're going to orient to will depend on the design that you've been working on. Section 5 is the name of this one. And now what I'm going to do is click on it, and I want 5, and I want to move it. I'm going to move it so that it is cutting through my stair. Okay, now I've forgotten that I had added this volume here, and I really don't want to see that in this view. The proper way to have done this would have been to draw a whole mass for the ground plane. But for this drawing, I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to hide it so that I can see the stair in section. You can see it going with its risers and treads. Okay. In terms of this visual style here, I'm going to minimize my scenes and go to styles, make sure I've got it set to the same one that I had before. I'm going to center this view, make it as big as I can. And this is going to be a view or a scene that I save. So I'm going to go to scenes here and I'm going to create a new scene. And I'm going to call this one I'm going to call it 3D section instead of scene 15. Okay, now there are a bunch of other scenes here that I'm not really going to use, and so you may want to just delete them from your drawing just to kind of simplify what we have here. If you're not sure whether you want to use them or not, then of course leave them. Right, now this view is ready to be turned into a 2D graphic image.